old Japanese malt whiskeys. Should you be adding some to your collection? Stay tuned for the Whisky Whistle. Konnichiwa, my whiskey people. Mark Coffin here for Whisky Whistle on YouTube, sharing a little whiskey awesomeness from Winnipeg, the center of North America, bringing you a very special Japanese malt whiskey review and discussion about whether or not you should be looking for and trying to grab old Japanese malt whiskeys whenever you find them in the wild. All right, so we've got two very interesting whiskeys here, both from Suntory. Now, by the way, we call it Suntory, but funnily in Asia, including in Japan, it's known as Santori. Santori. It sounds like an A rather than a U. But anyway, I digress. So I have here some things that are both from quite a while ago. I have a very, relatively old Yamazaki 12-year-old from before they discontinued the bottling. Okay, so I don't have any idea as to exactly when this was bottled, but here on the side, this little mini does in fact say L08. And then it's got something kind of like a 1 or an I, and then a 00. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea of its approximate bottling date, probably 2015 or maybe a bit earlier. But anyway, so we're going to open that mini. We're going to pour out the contents into my Whisky Whistle Glencairn glass, and we'll check that out. But wait, there is so much more. Then I found something really special. Now, both of these, by the way, I found in South Korea at the Namdaemun, what do they call it? The foreign goods market in Seoul. So you can check through there. There are so many whiskey hunters, though, that go there now. It's hard to find things. And I'm lucky that I have one particular shop that nobody seems to get over to. So anyway, so this is very interesting. This is actually a vintage. This is a 1991 vintage of Suntory. And it's not a single malt, but it's a blended malt. It's a mix of Yamazaki and Hakushu. Hakushu. Avoid trying to say Hakushu. Try to say Hakushu. But of course, as a very famous whiskey reviewer named Ralphie says, you bought it, you say it the way you like. And of course, I think what he's trying to say is that, you know what? We all come from different corners of the world. Our mouths work differently. So, I look at the way it's spelled and that's how I'm going to pronounce it. So anyway. Okay, so anyway, this is a blend of Yamazaki and Hakushu, 1991 vintage. And it was bottled in 2005, making that 14 years of age in the barrel. It was matured in a vintage, I shouldn't say vintage, in an old barrel. In other words, a refill barrel. So a refill barrel would mean it already had Yamazaki previously, maybe a couple of times. Okay, so probably the still character, the distillery character, will be more to the forefront. And then the cool thing is with this one, they did kind of like the Lincoln County process. They filtered this through bamboo charcoal, which is super cool. And, and who knows, the bamboo might have been used for wine or for sake or something else, adding that little bit extra sugary, flavory content into that charcoal. Okay, so we'll open that one. Now, I was hanging on to these for a special day. Now, this one cost me a fair bit. It was about 40 bucks or thereabouts, okay? And you end up paying quite a lot for Yamazaki if you're finding older bottles. Newer ones, it seems like they're going for about $200 American, which is too much, in my opinion. But anyway, we'll try that out again. I do have a review of Yamazaki 12 in the archives. I will put that in the description and maybe up here somewhere for you, okay? Now, this thing, again, I think I spent maybe $70 on this one, okay? And it's absolutely a quote-unquote collector's, investor's type of a bottle. Now, if you had a Yamazaki from 1991 bottled in 2005, it might be worth a couple, $3,000-$4,000, $5,000 even. This being a blended malt removes a little bit of that interest by the loser investors. Yeah, I said that. Anyway, so you can probably get a bottle of this for anywhere between $500 and $1,000. Probably not worth it for a lot of people, but if you are a Yamazaki, Hakushu, Suntory real junkie, like you love trying their things, that might be something to get for yourself for, you know, a rainy day bottle, a Christmas bottle, a promotion bottle, etc. All right, so let's get these opened up. Before I do that, make sure you subscribe to Whisky Whistle. There's a little tiny little bell-ish greeny thing right over here. I think it says subscribe. Click on that and then subscribe. Don't forget to touch the bell. Ding, ding. That way you'll be notified of my future videos, my future content, okay? Including my community posts in my community tab, which I think only subscribers actually get to view. You'll see some other posts that I'm doing and polls, and I'll be trying to get that ramped up a little bit more. If you're watching a lot of my content, please support the channel, help keep the lights on, and become a Whisky Whistle crewmate. Patreon.com/Whisky Whistle. You'll get your name in the credits at the end of each video. You'll also get advanced viewing of future Whisky Whistle content. And last but not least, glasses once you're beyond a certain threshold of support. And I will be getting t-shirts made this calendar year. I'm losing some weight, so I really do need to get something smaller for myself. So, okay, so let's get these opened. Now this one's been semi-professionally sealed with parafilm, which is something that you can do in order to mitigate evaporation in the bottle. That's going to be really tedious. Let's just do this the easy way. Well, semi-easy. You don't have to put a pile on. Just a couple of layers should be good enough. Opened. Should we give it a little bit of a whiff? Oh. Ooh. Okay, here we go. Yep, we're gonna go all in here. Okay, so that was Yamazaki 12. And I think I can get rid of this now. Okay, and then on to the heavy hitter, the Yamazaki 1991. And it's got a funny name, Furudaro Shiage, which apparently just means old cask. Okay? Oh, man. Well, now it's worthless to the loser investors. Notice I don't say collectors. I'm a collector. I know a lot of my fellow whiskey tubers are collectors. Whoa, that is tight. Okay, got it. And this one has a really, really ornate lid. And I don't know, hopefully I can zoom in on that. Try and steady myself. Okay. I don't know what it looks like, but it's pretty darn cool. Okay. Let's give it that little whiff. It's quite light. Okay, in we go. And notice there's a little bit of a color differential. Let's compare those colors and see what we see. So what do you see for color there? Most likely the Yamazaki, in fact, probably both of them have a little bit of color added. 14 years in refill casks for the Furudaru Shiage. It probably wouldn't be that dark. The charcoal would have added a bit of color, but it also would have taken some away. So it's hard to say as to whether or not that would actually influence the color. The Yamazaki 12, again, 12 years old. We do have a lot of sherry casks in there. But anyway, let's assume that there's color added. And let's check out the legs of both of these. I'll try to do that simultaneously. Hopefully I won't spill any of it on Rocky, by the way. Rocky, who's sitting here. Hey, Rocky. Come on, come say hello. Hey? Come and say hello. He's all dressed up. And now you can see him. There's no big, huge glasses in front of his face. Can you say hi to everybody? Yeah. What about these whiskeys? Anything good there? No, I don't think so. Okay. You're so cute. All right, so let's check out the legs. All right, we'll check the legs out one by one. I seem to be spilling a lot when I try to do the double. These 50 milliliter pours are a little bit more difficult to handle for me. I would say normally I'm reviewing about 30, but let's check these legs out for Yamazaki 12. Nice thick leggage. Very thick. Secondary legs haven't really started yet, which is a good sign. Just beginning to drip down now. That's looking pretty thick. And, you know, I'd have to say that's probably a lot of cask influence. And Yamazaki will use very little, if any, peat in their process. Probably about 2 to 3 ppm for the standard Yamazaki. They do make peated Yamazaki. Then they have hakushu, which is normally where they get their peat for their blends. But then there's also unpeated hakushu as well. Okay, so that was the Yamazaki 12. Let's see the Suntory 1991 Furudaru Shiage. Okay, that should be good. What do we see here? Also pretty thick and pretty slow. The secondary legs are already coming down here, indicating slightly less viscosity, in my opinion. But, you know, they're both in the ballpark. I said ballpark. These legs are a little bit thinner, whereas the Yamazaki 12 are thicker. And the strength of these whiskeys, I forgot to mention, in both cases is 43%. And you can see that on the back of the label. Although it is in Japanese, you'll see 43 there. You can take a screenshot, and now you can actually check from your image to translate, which is cool. Okay. All right, so that was the color and the legs. Now let's get started in earnest and check out the nose here for Yamazaki 12-year-old and older bottling. This is, boy, very, very complex, and absolutely this is not the current style of whiskey that you find from Japan. There is a lot of umami coming through here. Roasted sweet potatoes. Some kind of like a mango sauce. A little bit of peat. There's some peat here. There is a creamy baked rice pudding with raisins, not the Danish style. And it's got a very almost like XO cognac style of dark fruitiness coming through here. Now, and by the way, if the L08 refers to the 8th year of production, then that's a pretty old bottling. We have some interesting fudgy notes. A little bit of, interestingly, a little bit of furniture varnish. And in my opinion, that's a really, really good thing. And some really, really well, like air cured or whatever, traditional leather. So anyway, super complex, super different. And if you find yourself something like this, even if it's maybe like, I don't know, $100, and you're a Suntory, you're a Yamazaki fan, you're a Yamazaki fan, what an exciting tasting you will have with this. Holy Toledo. Okay, let's check out that palette a little bit then. Cheers. Kanpai. Actually, it's quite peaty. I would never have guessed it. My last tasting of this most certainly was a newer bottle than this particular one. What am I tasting here? I don't believe that they are direct firing their stills. I don't think. But it's got this flintiness along with that little bit of peat, reminding me of Springbank and other direct fired stills that are out there. And just imagine all types of Asian smells and tastes. There is some type of a little bit of chili sauce coming through here. Wow. Okay, let me try that again. Cheers. Super intense. In fact, the sherry is really not the driver of the flavor here. It is the still character, the distillery character, pardon me, and it's that style of production, that little bit of peat that's in there. Anyway, I just read that actually in around 2004, Yamazaki and Suntory changed from the words pure malt to single malt. So could be a 2005 or 2006 bottling. I'm not really sure. But boy, this is a very, very different Yamazaki 12 than what I've tasted in the past. We've got grain biscuits, like digestives but sweeter. Milk chocolate, and yet there's this sweet, like Thai chili note in there. The finish is smoky, peaty, sweet, intense sweetness. I don't want to say that it's like molasses, but it's beyond your dark brown sugars, getting into that even beyond golden syrup. So it's got quite a really dark sweetness to it. Really, really unique It's an older whiskey. I haven't tasted flavors like this since I had a really old bottle of Chivas 12-year-old and Chivas 18. Okay, we're going to add a little bit of water, not too much today. We'll go with 5 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 drops into about 30, 35 milliliters that's left. Maybe 40 even. Now, with that little bit of water, everything kind of refreshed itself. I feel like I'm actually getting really close to something like what it would have tasted like when it was released. Which is fruity, sweet, a hint of, like, again, that dark toffee, taffy, sweet, intense, flavored. It's not quite like an Eat More, but it's more intense than an Eat More without the peanuts. The sherry is blossoming a little bit here, but it's still very much a peat, smoky, flinty driven event here. I am getting more sherry coming into the finish. There seems to be some fresh oaky notes here, and they're quite savory and aromatic. And I wonder if we have some Mizunara oak involved there. Let me have a quick sip of coffee here. And a bit of water. I am ready. Now, let's get back into that. One more sip, and then on to the Whisky Whistle Whisky Score for this older Yamazaki 12. Some dark old sherry finally surfacing on the nose here. Intense dark cherry is coming through. Dried. They're dried cherries. That's really neat. Super interesting. If someone served this to me blind, I would probably think this was either a Springbank or a Loch Lomond or a Glen Scotia. One of those three. An older bottling, at least 14, 16, 18 years old, with some very, like an old sherry cask finish or refill sherry maturation with some very unusual cask finishing. I feel like the finish has even gotten longer with water added. There's that spice again, that intense Thai chili coming through. How cool is that? That is just so cool. All right, so let's get on to the Whisky Whistle Whisky Score for Yamazaki 12-year-old, a very old bottling from, let's say, roughly 2010-ish, I want to say, maybe a little bit earlier than that. What is that going to be, folks? It's going to be 92 out of 100. You heard it, 92 out of 100 is the Whisky Whistle Whisky Score for Yamazaki 12-year-old, 210-ish, or sometime around then. Should we give it a nice little Whisky Whistle kiss right on the Yamazaki label? Mwah. Little malt kiss and a little tiny mini hug. Okay. So 92 points. Now, if you're searching for these older ones, you're going to be paying a lot more. So again, the question is it worth it looking for older Yamazakis? Especially if you are yourself a Yamazaki fan, you will want to try this because it is so different from current Yamazaki 12 or the Distiller's Edition or what you get at the distillery, because I have that as well. There's a review in the archives. So yeah, it's worth it. Even if the mini is, I don't know, 120, 140 bucks, you might be compelled to grab that. And I think you're going to enjoy that. As a collector, would that be something that you might want to grab and hang on to? And then, 10 or 20 years from now, enjoy that? Maybe the afternoon of your retirement? Yeah, you might. Will it get you amazing returns on investment if you are a loser investor? I really don't think so. I think that at best, you're going to keep pace with inflation, maybe a little bit more, but the storage costs, the upkeep costs, and everything else might not make that very worth it very much for yourself. One nice thing is all the Yamazakis have a screw top. That's a better closure than a cork. So let's get into some smelling of the Suntory 1991 Furu Daru Shiage. Oh man, this is ancient. Now this was very, very well preserved, but I have notes in here that remind me of a lot of really old vintage single malt Scotch whiskies that I've had before. You've got this, I guess we'll call it old bottle effect. In fact, that's really what it is. It'll be less pronounced in a smaller container than in a large one. But we have old wood construction basements with a little bit of fireplace smell. Very little sweetness here. Leather, some mineral. So it's got kind of like ocean spray note to it. Digging deep there, I'm getting some ginger. Imagine some very unusual, different, kind of weird Japanese, Korean, Asian candies and treats that don't really translate to what me as a Westerner, as a Canadian, am really introduced to. Although, oh, man, there's almost a little bit of something like a ginseng candy. These different candies that you can get in Asia that you can't really source, that aren't common, that aren't really part of the Canadian or American tastes or European tastes until very recently. So bizarre. This is so bizarre. This has got just an ancient nose. Now, I mean, we're talking, this was bottled almost 20 years ago. And this was produced 32 years ago. So, I mean, like I was 16 at the time. Okay. Let's give that a quick taste. Wow. quite peat forward, ashy, very subtle sweetness. This has got more of everything else that you get in typical whiskeys, minus the sweetness. Okay, let me take one more sip here. The mouthfeel is buttery. The finish is super intense, astringent and peaty. Some bitter and again slightly chili-like flavors coming through in the finish. It's got a very, very intense, long finish. Now, for people in Japan, this would have been consumed mainly by people in Japan and I guess any expats that were living there at the time. There wasn't much being exported back in 2005, a little bit, but not too much. And apparently a lot of Japanese at that time, and also Koreans too, wherever whiskey was popular in Asia, typically they're mixing it, highballs or with other sodas and so on. So as a highball, I can see how that intense, bitter, and astringent flavors will really blossom with soda added, I believe. The soda also is going to tame down a little bit of that astringency back into the nose. It's sweetened up a little bit, but we still have a lot of furniture polish. We still have a lot of sea spray and the smell of fishing tackle, maybe like the next day. As I'm playing with it, I am coaxing out a little bit of sweetness here, but that's just a very, very light, like a little bit of honey on toast type of a flavor smell. Okay, let's check out the palate again. Kanpai. Super leathery. The sweetness is coming through here now. It's had some time to open up. Again, we've got like sweet like biscuits, like digestives, but even sweeter than that. It's almost medicine-like. The peat is actually pretty substantial. Like something around how peaty Benromach would be if it were 20 or 25 years old. The finish is super complex. Again, very astringent. A lot of bitter flavors. We've got the smoke. We've got the ash. We've got, again, something not quite the Thai chili that I had in this particular Yamazaki 12, but there is a hot spice going on there. The bamboo charcoal maybe adds a little bit of, I don't know, like waxiness. And I've had bamboo matured soju before, and it does add this very alkaline kind of sweetness to it. It's like ginger, some 5-spice, a little bit of mace. Oh, just so very astringent on the finish. I didn't add water there yet. Let's have a bit of coffee first. This made my mouth so spicy that the coffee almost, like, this is like this is like maybe 40 degrees now, this coffee. And it's like practically burning my mouth. Wow. Okay. Oh yeah, we're going to add a little bit of water. We'll add 5 drops here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so let's see what's going to happen here. Maybe a little bit of maple syrup coming through now. It's slightly sweeter, a little bit less bizarre, a little bit less bookshelf leather, a little bit less furniture polish. Again, very interestingly, that 5 drops, that's 1/3 of 1 milliliter, really blossomed this whiskey. Should I call it blooming? Like, so many things are different. The mouthfeel is different. It's gotten a little bit jelly-like. That astringency has really tanked. The waxiness has actually ramped up. But it's still quite smoky. It still has that saline, that sea spray, marine type of a flavor, and a nice intense spicy finish. So let's get on to the Whisky Whistle Whisky Score for Suntory 1991 Furudaru. All right, so let's get on to the Whisky Whistle Whisky Score for Suntory 1991 Furudaru Shiage, 14-year-old, bottled in 2005. What is that going to be, folks? It's going to be 87 out of 100. You heard it, 87 out of 100 is the Whisky Whistle Whisky Score for Suntory 1991 Furudaru Shiage. It's very, very, very interesting, and I'm so happy that I tried this. As if you were a Suntory Yamazaki lover and you're thinking of splashing out on this to eventually crack open with buddies or to have as a year-end bottle, I might think twice about it. On the other hand, if you are a loser investor and you're looking at this and wondering why it's only $500 or $1,000, yeah, it probably will do okay over the 10 or 20 years to come. So that might be something to consider. That's just my 2 cents. But interesting nonetheless. This is nothing like the whiskeys you get anywhere in the world today. Very much like a lot of the older malts that you'll find from the 90s and 2000s from Scotland. For drinking, I highly recommend you try to get a bottle of that Yamazaki 12, an older bottling. I think that's really going to impress your friends. It's going to impress you. That's the most important thing. Anyway, so I sure hope you enjoyed that. Exploring some old Japanese malts. Yamazaki 12 from, let's say, 2010. And then we had this Suntory 1991 blended malt of Yamazaki and Hakushu, bottled in 2005. So they're sort of in the ballpark for their era. And just wonderful exploration. I think this deserves one more little taste. Just so bizarre, so different. Wow. Okay, maybe one you can skip. It is still very, very interesting, however. So give me your thoughts. Have you tried either of these? Do you have that in your collection? If so, are you going to crack it? Are you going to hang on to it? What are you going to do? What about you? Are you a Yamazaki fan? Are you trying to collect older bottles? What have been your favorites? You can hear my kids that have just come home from school. The last thing I want to mention is what'll come up in the next review, which is a newer Japanese single malt whiskey, and that is Komagatake, and this is called The Nature of Shinshu Shinano Tanpopo. Nature of Shinshu Shinano Tanpopo. I think that's some type of a flower. That's the flower that's depicted here, I believe. This one's 52%, and it's going to be very exciting. So stay tuned for that one. All right. So take care, everybody. Again, my name is Mark Kaufman. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you for the next review. Bye-bye now.